Hello everyone, Sar here. Thank you so much for joining me for a Kendra Card challenge video where I'm going to be creating the next 5 cards for Kendra's Card challenge, and I'm going to be using the May 2026 Bonus Printable. This one is called Stained Glass Digital Card Making Kit. You can get the bonus printables if you are a paid membership. I believe it is, let's get the instructions here. If you print out the card sketches, you'll see this piece right here. It tells you all the perks of being on a Kendra Card Challenge Patreon membership. And so the monthly bonus printable is for silver, gold, and platinum. So those are the new names. It used to be called Official, All Access, and VIP, but those are the new names: silver, gold, and platinum. You get this for free, and all you have to do is print it out and choose. What I do is I choose the papers that I want to play with, mainly because I'm not going to be using all of these for my card sketches. You could just pick out the 6 that you would need. This bonus printable does come with 18 pattern papers, 30 colored images, 12 black and white images, circle sentiments, and you get ultimate sentiments. There's 10 of them, and they're stained glass themed. So I've printed out the ones that I'm going to be using. I usually print out the ephemera and then I cut them all out. So here's some of them. We have these nice bright hearts. Now the paper that I use is Epson's Premium Matte cardstock. It is a little bit pricier, not too bad, but it is phenomenal with printing. You can see the nice beautiful colors that you have there, and it's just rich and beautiful. We got some corners here, lots of stained glass, that's the idea. And we got some fish, and so there's lots and lots and lots. I really like this rose, that's really pretty. And then here are the black and white ones, the stained glass windows. So you can color these in. Now, if you're using the paper that I'm using, it's not alcohol friendly per se. I have no problems doing it, but I find that I had best luck with just sticking with one color instead of blending. And then here are some of the sentiments, the circle sentiments. Oh, there's another little leaf there. So here's the sentiments, and the strips I've already cut out, and there's a bunch of them right here. Of course, they're all flipped upside down, but you get the idea. So those work in the little strips. And then I was coloring with this one. I forgot to take this out. I was just playing. But ignore the coloring. You can see that you have a nice blank canvas if you wanted to color that. And then I chose just the plain colors to play with for my cards. And there's some blues and yellows and reds. And essentially what I did was I just printed it out, cut them in half, because then I store them in this little plastic sheet so that it's all bundled together when I'm ready to play with it. So without delaying any further, let's start creating the next 5 cards, which are sketches 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so let's start with the first card. This is sketch number 6. I have placed it in the corner there so we have a nice reference. I'm going to follow this sketch relatively closely, but because we're using such bright, vivid colors, I'm being cautious of adding too much color. So I'm just going to cut a piece of this blue that's kind of subtle-ish, like it's not going to be creating any additional bright colors. And then that pink and blue will sit nicely on top of it. Now, I'm not sure how everyone else is doing this, but I figured this was a nice, easy way to add a strip to the 2 pieces here. I'm just going to glue it on the edge of the yellow, and then now I can easily snip it off, and then I can glue the rest of it to the pink. I found this was the easiest way for me. I'm sure there are many ways of doing it, but this worked quite nicely, because the problem is trying to measure that diagonal cut on a strip is not the easiest, because if you cut it too short, just even a fraction, well, now you got to cut the pattern paper to match as well. So this was nice and easy, and it looks really nice. It just really pops. This kind of sketch would be kind of nice if I had green on the bottom, because then it kind of gives this mountain or hill meadow type effect. So you can create a nice scene with it. But mine is more abstract. Mine is just following the sketch. And then I'm going to be adding these little corners. They are in the printable. And I just fussy cut those out. And I'm going to hug them on the top right and the bottom left of this center panel there. But as you can see, I didn't add the 2 columns that you can see in the sketch there. I just decided to let the blue have more space. For my sentiment, I chose this one, You Are Bright. It came from the printable. It has the nice pink in there that ties it all together. And it's just a nice, simple card to give someone to boost their mood. If you have a friend or family member who just needs a little reminder of how awesome they are. Sketch 7 is the next one. This is a fun design. It's so simple, but it is so neat looking. So what I'm going to do is I'm placing everything in order so that I know exactly where to glue it. And then I will go one piece at a time. I still happen to skew it the fractionist of an inch. I know that's not a word, but it just the slightest bit I went off, but that's okay. I will trim this and no one will know except whomever watches this video. But it's okay. We'll just keep going and everything will be fine. So I'm just continuing to make sure that everything is perfectly lined up as I glue each piece down. It really is a fun, simple design. This one right here. This one is such an easy one to also to just recreate, like pump out a bunch of them in different colors, and then you have a nice collection. So there we go. I'm just going to snip just a small sliver off just so that you don't see it askew. Now we'll take the pink pieces and we'll create that pinwheel effect. So essentially you're just taking the triangles and going around the flat edge on the end of each piece. And then if you do that to all 4, you get that pinwheel. So there we go. Right to the end, flat piece. And then we'll do the same thing for the last one. Now, because this design is so simple, I decided to keep it exceptionally simple with just a simple image and sentiment. So we'll glue this down and leaving, that's about 1/4 of an inch gap or 1/8 of an inch on all sides to give a nice frame. So here is the simple image. I'm just going to color this. It's a dove, but I'm going to color it the similar colors to the pattern paper as best as I can. You can tell that I need to do a few coats because this pattern paper, or this paper, is not really meant for alcohol markers, I would say. And so you do see the streaks. So forget about blending, I just need to do a couple coats. Now the yellow is not too bad because it's just so bright and you don't really see it, but when it starts getting to certain colors you can. So we'll do a little bit of yellow here and then we'll bring in a pink, but this one was a little too fluorescent, so I'm going to knock that down a tad using the V03, but even then I find that's a tad too fluorescent pink for the pattern paper that we're using. And so I'm just going to bring in a little bit darker of a shade. It's not going to match, but at least this will kind of tone it down a bit. It's going to be like a grayish purple. And then we'll just fussy cut this the rest of the way out so that we have a nice little white border around our image. And soon I'll fast forward that. There we go. There's our little pretty dove. And we'll just make sure we position this just nicely that we're not covering our whole pinwheel, and it hugs that sentiment which says your kindness shines through. Very beautiful little sentiment for this card. I'm going to add a tiny bit of glue just to get that dove adhered so that I can kind of position and see using the tweezers, so I'm not using blocking it with my hand, to see where I would like it. And I think we're just going to position it just a bit off to the left so that we can still see our pinwheel. I don't want to cover that. I really like that effect. Then I will just snip this and make a nice little banner end to it, a fishtail end, so that we have a cute little sentiment. And we'll glue this down, and you could add some embellishments to this. or keep it simple like I did. It's a very pretty card, and it can come in, you can just use any colors you want. Now I'm just going to add a little bit, use some of those scraps to add a little bit of height so that that wing doesn't sag. And there we go. That's sketch number 7. Moving on to sketch number 8, I'm going to take some of that stained glass black and white. I'm not going to color it. I'm just going to use the pattern to give it so that a little bit of texture and breaking away from that white card base just enough with those black lines, because the image that we're going to use also has that in its background. So I'm trying to tie those together. Following the sketch, I am actually using the same colored paper for the sketches. So if you've noticed that in these sketches, wherever I am using the purple, that is the pink pattern paper. Wherever I'm using blue, that is yellow. And of course, now we have the third color, which is the light pink, and that's going to be my blue pattern paper. And so I'm just going to lay everything down and then snip it all off so that it is perfectly aligned on my pattern paper. And like I said, these pattern papers are so vivid and bright. You really don't want to add too much more, because it's just going to really compete with each other. So having the black lines, stained glass lines, is not too bad. Of course, now I'm bringing in an image that is full of color, but we're going to center that in the middle of this stained glass, so it's going to hopefully not compete too much. It's going to catch your eye in the center and then complement the colors in the background. And then we'll add our little banner there where it says, "You're a classic work of art," which I think is fitting for this stained glass, because if you can create a stained glass that looks like that, that's definitely a work of art. I would love to be able to create stained glass like that. I'm just going to add 2 fishtail banner, or to make this banner, and try to balance it as best as I can, and we'll glue that down near the bottom, just slightly above the bottom, letting the stained glass peak just slightly on the bottom there. There we go. Okay, now on to sketch number 9. I was going to start gluing these pieces down to this blue pattern background, but I decided let's just bring in a piece of scrap printer paper. The reason to use printer paper is because it's very light and it won't add much height at all, or let's say it's not going to make it bulky because it's just so thin. So this way I can glue everything down, trim anything off that I need to, and it just makes it so much easier. And the reason for this is because if you look at the sketch, we have all these diagonal shapes, and I want to glue them all down and then trim. I don't want to try to trim those and then fit them, because it's just going to be much harder to do that. Now, I misjudged the sketch and how each one fits, because that one I'm doing right now is supposed to be cut off, and then you can use the remainder on the bottom. So it kind of continues. But I angled it, I think, too much, and so I didn't actually need to use that. And I'm totally fine with that. I like how I was able to fit every single piece in once, and I didn't have to worry about little pieces. So definitely feel free to do it that way too. But if you want to follow the sketch exactly, then don't do what I did. So we're just going to go and add all these pieces. Now the new color we're using is this red color in the sketch, which is green. I know it's a little confusing, but if you follow the sketch, that's kind of what I'm doing. So the red on the sketch is the green pattern paper that I'm adding. And there we go, and we'll add our last piece, and this is the pink. And then once that's all there, I'm just going to let it dry for a split second, and then I can start trimming everything off. I don't know if you've caught that I didn't actually fully glue that yellow strip down. That was so I could tuck all these little strips in, and then when it was all done, I could finish gluing that yellow strip fully down. And now I can make sure that everything is nice and secure. Okay, so now we're going to glue this panel down to this blue pattern paper just to give us a little bit of break from the white card base. And I was going to glue this down and decided I'm going to switch this up a bit because I'm using the peacock image. You can see that in the top left there. I decided that let's do a landscape and make it look like these banner pieces are the tails of a peacock. If I had really thought about it in advance, I could have had them more spread out, like the yellow could have been straight up and then the greens angled outwards. It would have had to change things up, but that would have been kind of cool. Anyways, this is the way we went, and so I think this is kind of a nice tie-in to the peacock image. I'm just going to add a little bit of scrap cardstock to keep that image nice and flush, because that yellow banner is slightly higher than the rest of the images. So this will make it nice and even. And then I will add some fishtails to this banner sentiment like I did with all the other ones, keeping them all consistent. I'm trying to, for my sets, trying to keep them consistent with color, imagery, and style, as if they were like part of a collection. I'm trying to challenge myself to do that because sometimes I just go all over the place, and it is challenging sometimes. But there we go. That was card number 9. And so to finish off, we will do card or sketch number 10. And this one's actually fairly simple. The pattern paper that we're using is a huge piece of green that fits the whole background, which is measuring 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I'm not going to do the sketch exactly. I'm just going to follow the colored pattern papers only. And then I'm just going to use the ephemera or the cutaways to do the rest of it. I will start with the blue rectangle that is in the sketch. And I'm going to be using that because I kind of want to create this little blue window, like almost like a window looking into the sky. And I'm going to use the ephemera to create a little scene. This little rectangle is also part of the digital download, and I think that's perfect for just creating some grounding for our images. We have the butterfly, and then we have that little ivy with the berries. Really cute. I was trying to think of what to do with this circle. I didn't really have a sentiment for it, so really it's just decoration. There is no real purpose to it other than it was part of the sketch, and it just adds a little bit of color and style. So I am going to tuck that in underneath the ivy, just kind of making different layers. And that is pretty much this card. So I'm not actually going to put a sentiment on this one. I'm going to let this one just be decoration, and then the sentiment and message could be on the inside. So that is it. This is 5 cards using the May 2026 Bonus Printable. If you are interested in getting this printable, sign up for Kendra Card Challenge's Patreon. I'll have a link in the description box below. I believe there's a code for first-time subscribers that can get a percentage off. So that is, if that's something you're interested, definitely check that out. Well, guys, I do hope that you enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun playing with this collection. And until the next time, have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.